Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out the real reason British food has a bad reputation.
British food is awful. We conquered the world for spices and don't use any of them, and we still eat like Germans are flying overhead. These are all jokes us Brits are used to seeing in the comments section across the entire internet. But is there any truth in it? Welcome into this deep dive into the misunderstood world of British cuisine, where the puddings are black and the beans are baked and served for breakfast again. I'm going to be going through the history of British food, stopping now and then to address and maybe even taste some notable dishes, and if needed, defend them like they're a football team I don't play for. So as we're about to slice through the stereotypes and serve up the truth, it's clear to everyone right now that British cuisine's reputation is in the bin. But let's see if we can change that by learning a little more about the good grub of the Great British Isles. Right, let's set the stage here.
Hang on, y'all be sure to go to Big Nibbles and like and subscribe. I have another channel where I react to music. It's called JJLA Reacts Music. Check it out. Maybe give me a like and subscribe. I'm curious to hear about the history of British food. It does have a bad reputation, but fish and chips, nothing wrong with that. Fried fish, fried potatoes, how could you go wrong? Chicken tikka masala? It's the best. The only British food that I'm totally not for is jellied eel. Not into that. But everything else, like, why not, right?
Before the Romans crashed the party in 43 AD, British dining was quite a simple affair. If you could grow it, hunt it, or forage it, it was dinner. We're talking cereals, grains, and the kind of meat and fish that didn't just walk onto your plate, but demanded a good chase in the woods with the hope that you wouldn't get mauled to death in the process. The locals thrived on a catch or grow your own menu, featuring things like nettle soup, berries, and maybe even squirrel, and whatever fish could be wrangled from the rivers without getting yourself drowned. Vegetables like onions and cabbages were the unsung heroes, turning a bland stew into something kind of edible, while wild herbs like thyme and mint were the ancient Brits' answer to flavour.
This is all going great. This is all great ingredients. Farm to table, fresh fish, little critters you find in the woods that probably taste like chicken. Where did it go wrong?
Barley was already being fermented into ale because water would get you killed, and on special occasions even mead made an appearance, which means ancient Brits took one look at bees and thought, I want to eat that thing's spit. It's a pretty dreary affair so far in ancient Britain, but as with most food on this little island, it's made better by foreigners. When the Romans arrived, they didn't just bring legions, they brought legumes, grapes, cherries, and fancy herbs start popping up faster than you can say Hail Caesar.
Okay, so like beans and... Okay.
The Romans were kind of the original food influencers, if you will, introducing ancient Brits to the exotic world of things like black pudding. Black pudding is a combination of suet, fat, grain or cereal, onion, seasoning, and cow or pig's blood, all stuffed into a natural casing.
The blood throws me, but I've eaten cow blood before, like a rare steak. There's cow blood in there. Also, there's this Thai restaurant near my apartment called May Malai's Thai House of Noodles. It's excellent. And they make this dish called boat noodles, and it's basically like a ramen, but the soup is made with pig's blood, and it's really good. Pig's blood is tasty.
Usually one of the aforementioned animals' intestines. Here we run into one of the earliest examples of gross British food. Black pudding, which was first recorded in the 5th century, is one of many things that us Brits still eat today that other countries may consider gross. It's a blood sausage, essentially. Ancient Britons had to use every part of the animal, and the blood is as good as any. Personally, I like it. It's incredibly rich, and while I'm not making it a regular feature of my breakfasts, you can bet that if I'm having a full English breakfast, it's making an appearance.
Okay, eggs, bacon, baked beans. One of these is blood sausage, or black pudding. Maybe one's black pudding and one's blood sausage. I don't know. Got a couple of mystery meats.
You can bet that if I'm having a full English breakfast, it's making an appearance. And with that, we welcome the next guests to the British Isles. The Vikings. Not to be outdone, The Vikings later sailed in with their very own culinary tactics. Big, burly men with even bigger appetites, teaching the Brits the fine art of not just bathing, but catching fish and smoking and drying it to perfection.
Bathing?
Thanks to them, this smoked fish remains a cherished dish in many British households. And while our produce is usually pretty bad, the one thing I think British food stands up well is dairy. We have fantastic cheese, milk and butter. British cows, sheep and goats practically entered food folklore, becoming the unsung heroes of the British breakfast table. And if you haven't had...
I mean, that's all good stuff, right? What else do the Vikings eat? I know they didn't eat just a bunch of smoked fish. Fruits and berries, meats and fish, beer and mead, bread and porridge. Yeah, okay, yeah. Not that different.
Becoming the unsung heroes of the British breakfast table. And if you haven't had the pleasure to try our cheese, butter or milk from Britain's grass-fed pastures, it's bloody gorgeous. And while you might not have heard of it, it is the envy of many parts of the world. Each wave of invasions left its mark on the UK, like gravy stains on a white t-shirt. From Roman vineyards to Viking smokehouses, Britain's menu started to evolve, from survival snacks to a buffet of bizarre but beloved dishes. And things just keep getting better, because up next are the Normans. The Normans kicked things off in 1066, not just conquering lands, but appetites, annoyingly introducing French zest into English diets. I'm not usually one to give the French any compliments, but the noble tables saw meats dressed up in fruity sauces and spices, and overall, it was a good thing. They also helped popularise pork pies, a dish dating back to the 14th century, which became a staple due to its ability to preserve meat for longer periods, which was essential for those long Norman hunting trips.
Is a pork pie basically pork with pie crust around it? It consists of a filling of roughly chopped pork and pork fat surrounded by a layer of jellied pork stock in a hot water crusty pastry. I don't know about the jelly, but the rest of it sounds alright.
Then came the monks, who were not just praying, but playing with food flavours. They turned simple gardens into herb havens and started brewing beer commercially, because even holy men need a pint now and then. The peasants, on the other hand, weren't quite dining in such divine decadence yet. Their fare was still more about survival, really. Stewing whatever they could get into a pottage pot and pairing it with the ever-reliable barley bread, usually still washed down with ale, because, well, water was still a bit of a gamble. Jump forward.
How are they just drinking ale all the time? How did people live? Y'all, if I'm drinking ale all the time and no water, I'm dying. Access to water for everyday needs was achieved in two ways: an on-site supply, pumping or carrying water from rivers, uptake of groundwater, or collection of rainwater in cisterns, or bringing water from a more distant source through new constructions or maintenance of antique aqueducts. Did they know about boiling water? They may not have. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't bad enough to kill them, it was just bad enough to make them sick.
And we welcome in the Tudors with their New World novelties. Potatoes, tomatoes, and even turkeys begin to strut around English soil. Potatoes in particular quickly became a dietary staple, fundamentally altering British cuisine. Sugar and...
Yeah, whenever I think of British cuisine, there's got to be a potato in there, right? Like potato. But they didn't always have potatoes? Y'all didn't always have potatoes? Who brought these potatoes in? The Tudors. Oh. Potatoes and tomatoes came from America. I did know tomatoes came from America. There's a fun fact is that Italians didn't have tomatoes until they were brought over from America. But I didn't know potatoes too.
Sugar and spices start flowing more freely, especially at the tables of the sweet-toothed wealthy, making pastries and desserts more elaborate than Henry VIII's body count. The Tudor era also saw the rise of a ploughman's lunch. It wasn't called that yet, but it's a simple, rustic meal that combined bread, cheese and pickles, and sometimes some cold meats. Essentially, a working man's picnic. While it did become more formally recognised and marketed later, its roots trace back to this era.
Ploughman's lunch? I've never heard of that. It sounds delicious, though. It sounds like it has all the makings of, like, a deli. A ploughman's lunch is an originally British cold meal based around bread, cheese, and fresh or pickled onions. Additional items can be added such as ham, green salad, hard-boiled eggs, and apple. And usual accompaniments are butter and a sweet pickle such as a Branston. As its name suggests, it's almost commonly eaten at lunchtime. It is particularly associated with pubs and often served with beer. The saltiness of the cheese was noted to enhance the relish of the beer. That sounds good. I might get Jersey Mike's today just because of that. That triggered my brain. Jersey Mike's.
Rustic meal that combined bread, cheese and pickles and sometimes some cold meats. Essentially, a working man's picnic. While it did become more formally recognised and marketed later, its roots trace back to this era. Spices such as pepper, cinnamon and cloves began to permeate British cuisine through colonial trade routes, significantly altering the flavour profiles of most British food. Treacle tart, which was first mentioned in the 19th century, its origins to this influx of sugar, becoming a quintessential British dessert.
Treacle? Is that an animal organ? What is treacle? A thick, sticky, dark syrup made from partly refined sugar. Oh, molasses. Delicious. Carry on.
Welsh rarebit also emerged during this time. It's essentially a posh cheese on toast that became a popular snack. Its origins trace back to the 18th century, where it was a comforting and quick meal for the working class.
Grilled cheese. This is delicious. Where did it go wrong? This is all good stuff, right?
By the time we get to Queen Victoria, railways were revolutionising food transport, making it possible to enjoy Scottish salmon or Cornish cream at the same speed as a bad internet meme spreading. Game meats like venison and pheasant become symbols of social status and were featured prominently in feasts and banquets. And with the rise of the middle class, there was a new demand for richer, more varied diets. This included the introduction of French cuisine techniques and foods such as jelly and custard, which still remain a classic flavour combo to this day.
I'm sorry, jelly and custard together? No. Custard and jelly dessert. It is together. Oh. Okay. Would that be good? I don't know. I think the texture might throw me. I'd try it though.
Still remain a classic flavour combo to this day. Beef Wellington also becomes popular during this time, named after the Duke of Wellington following his victory at Waterloo in 1815.
Beef Wellington is British food, y'all. That's a good thing. I'm waiting for the twist. Where did it get bad?
This luxurious dish is a prime example of how British cuisine began to incorporate elements of French cooking, reflecting the opulence of the time. Yorkshire pudding also made its debut in this period. Originally served as a first course to fill up diners before the main meat dish, it's made from a simple batter of eggs, flour and milk. It became a beloved part of the British Sunday roast, a meal that remains at the heart of British family life to this day. The Victorian era also popularised fish and chips. Originally brought in by Jewish immigrants, it becomes a working class...
Wait, what was that next to it? What is this? Mashed peas and... what is the white stuff? Tartar sauce? Potatoes?
Fish and chips. Originally brought in by Jewish immigrants, it becomes a working class staple, and by the mid-19th century, the combination of fried fish and potatoes was both cheap and filling, making it an instant hit. This dish remains a symbol of British food. Shepherd's pie, with its origins in the late 18th century,
that's delicious. Meat and potatoes.
Became a comfort dish and was also pretty handy for using up whatever leftover roast meat you had. It's essentially a minced meat pie topped with mashed potatoes and baked to a golden perfection.
Delicious.
A dish that represents the resourcefulness of British cooking during times of scarcity. And we also get the Scotch egg during the Georgian era around 1738. It's invented as a portable snack for travellers. This hearty snack became a popular item and its influence continues to the present day. Eton Mess is also a dessert born in the 19th century at Eton College, which combines strawberry, meringue and whipped cream into a delightfully messy treat that became synonymous with British summer.
Eton Mess. I love the name. Eton Mess is a traditional English dessert consisting of a mixture of strawberries and other berries, meringue, and whipped cream. I feel like here we call that a parfait. I don't think there's meringue in a parfait, but there's whipped cream. Believed to originate from Eton College and is served at the annual cricket match. Eton Mess is occasionally served at Harrow School, where it is referred to as Harrow Mess. It was originally made with either strawberries or bananas mixed with ice cream or cream That's great. These are all delicious dishes. What
We get
happened?
to something quite big. Tea. Tea is Britain's liquid pride. When the government slashed tea taxes, it was like a national tea party. From duchesses to dock workers, everyone was sipping the steep delight, because there is nothing like a hot cup of colonial conquest to brighten your afternoon. Tea is still an iconic thing in British culture. Not everyone drinks it nowadays, but everyone's got a plug-in kettle, which the National Electric Grid has to compensate for at specific times in the day due to everyone switching it on and making a nice cuppa.
Really?
Shortly after, canned food bursts onto the scene, changing the British plate forever. Quality, optional. Convenience, though, mandatory. Suddenly, dinner was just...
That sounds like America.
Quality, optional. Convenience, though, mandatory. Suddenly, dinner was just a can opener away. And with this came one of the most insulted dishes in British culture, baked beans. Now, I've already covered this in a cheeky little short, but one of the most hated and bizarre British breakfast staples has a very interesting origin story. There is a potential twisted story that might fill you with shame or anger, because the ever so British baked bean was reportedly invented by an American and just marketed to us Brits. It's believed baked beans were first canned around the 1860s, but it was the Pennsylvania-based H.G. Heinz Company, founded by Henry Heinz, that started mass production of tinned baked beans in 1895. The company started producing the cans in Pittsburgh, but became a British favourite. As we get closer to modern day, British cuisine evolved from a melee of medieval meats to a structured symphony of starters, mains and desserts, each era layering its own unique flavours into the hearty, sprawling banquet that is British food history.
Is there a British brand of baked beans? I mean, Heinz is the classic, right? Branston baked beans. Is that a British company? Looks like it. Yeah, but Heinz is still number one, y'all.
The phrase Brits still eat like Germans are flying overhead was mentioned earlier, and a lot of what happened to British eating habits during this period is where I think most people are stuck in their ways. World War I brought rationing, with sugar, meat and butter becoming more precious than a sunny day in London. Victory gardens popped up, and people were encouraged to plant and grow their own food, which worked at the time because unlike today, more people had gardens. The years between the World Wars provided a brief respite, allowing British cuisine to recover slightly. However, the economic difficulties of the 20s and the 30s meant that many of the lessons in frugality and self-sufficiency from World War I were still retained. And while Hitler was popping stimulants and invading Europe, World War II took culinary austerity to new heights, or lows, depending on your taste buds. During World War II, rationing became even more severe. Walton pie, a vegetable pie with literally whatever is available at the time, became a staple, and the refrigerated ships previously used to transport imported goods were now being used for the war effort, so British people got used to making whatever they could with whatever they could get their hands on.
Okay, this is where the reputation came in. That makes sense.
Mock banana, which is a dessert made of boiled and mashed parsnips.
Yo, I made mock banana. It was gross. Gross.
Mixed with sugar and a bit of banana essence, was one such inventive creation. The jellied eel, however, rose to infamy during this time. While the British, especially Londoners, had been eating eel for centuries at this point, it became particularly associated with wartime austerity.
I got chills. That's graphic. They're making it move. That's disgusting. Disgusting. Like, why the jelly? Why the jelly? Just the eel I could probably handle, but the jelly, y'all.
Centuries at this point, it became particularly associated with wartime austerity. Now, to an outsider, jellied eels isn't something most Brits eat to this day. In fact, a lot of us have never had it, myself included. I won't be trying it because I know it's going to be gross. And to this day, it's only really eaten in a small part of East London.
Really? What, who's still eating this jellied eel? The surviving traditional East End pie and mash shops will likewise serve jellied eels. Why? The dish consists of chopped eels boiled in a spiced stock that is allowed to cool and set, forming a jelly. It is usually served cold. I mean, I guess some people like it. It's also consumed in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, France, Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Scandinavians. I guess if you're eating that as a child, you acquire a taste for it. And I'm one to talk. I know in America we eat like pig's feet, chicken feet, chitlins, which is intestines. You know, we're not totally above that kind of stuff, but the jelly.
As we move past the wars, welcome to the kitchens of post-war Britain, where the menu was as grey as the sky. A time where belts were tightened more than a boomer's tipping purse, British food faced a flavour famine that would make even Oliver Twist reconsider asking for more. Wartime rationing lingered like that one party guest who just won't leave, stretching into the 1950s and turning every meal into a masterclass in culinary creativity, where the secret ingredient was usually depression. But then, like a plot twist in a kitchen soap opera, the 60s rolled around, bringing the thrilling advent of convenience. Fish fingers, first marketed in the UK by Birdseye in 1955, became a British classic. These culinary liberators weren't just easy on the clock, they were symbols of modernity. Why spend hours cooking a meal when you could make it magically materialise from the mystical realms of the freezer aisle?
Yeah, I remember eating fish sticks a lot as a kid. I think my mom was like, what, like, just feed the kids.
The 1950s also saw the rise of Toad in the Hole, which despite its odd name, became a beloved comfort food for post-war families.
Hold on, what's that? Toad in the Hole. I always get that mixed up with eggs in a basket. It looks like sausages in like a Yorkshire pudding, right? Toad in the Hole is a traditional British dish consisting of sausages and Yorkshire pudding. Yorkshire pudding batter, usually served with onion gravy and vegetables. Historically, the dish has also been prepared using other meats, such as rump steak and lamb's kidney. That ruined it. Toad in the Hole.
Sausages baked in a Yorkshire pudding batter with a bit of gravy. What's not to love? Another post-war favourite that emerged during this time was Bubble and Squeak. This dish, made from leftover vegetables, especially potatoes and cabbage, became a go-to meal for frugal families looking to stretch their food supplies. And now we move on to something that I think improved Britain's...
Bubble and Squeak seems like a great leftover thing. Delicious.
...looking to stretch their food supplies. And now we move on to something that I think improved Britain's food forever. And I'm talking, of course, about immigration. Post-1945, the influx of immigrants from the Caribbean, India and Pakistan introduced new spices and culinary techniques, leading to the integration of dishes such as curry, which has become a British staple.
Nice.
Immigrants that were unable to get hold of ingredients they were used to from their homelands started using alternatives that they could find in British shops and supermarkets, creating an entirely new subgenre of their homeland cuisine. Usually changed and catered to the British palate, hundreds of dishes are invented during this time as part of the British cuisine culture, and these dishes remain unique to this day. Just look at what we call a Chinese. It will differ massively from what's available in other Chinese restaurants across the globe. The popularisation of chicken tikka masala...
There's French fries in there. French fries and Chinese food? That's funny. I bet it's good, though. And gravy? We don't do that here.
What's available in other Chinese restaurants across the globe. The popularisation of chicken tikka masala, an adaptation of an Indian dish tailored to British taste, symbolises the fusion of cultures in modern British cuisine. Curry became the new national comfort food, with chicken tikka masala leading the charge as our new national dish, because nothing says British like spicing up an Indian dish until it's almost unrecognisable. Britain now has a plethora of curry houses, and going to one is still a national pastime. Getting drunk on clean Asian lager, ordering way too many poppadoms and naan, and being incredibly rude and annoying to the curry house waiters has been an integral part of the British experience since the 1970s.
I'm having Indian food tonight, and that's weird. I just got a text about it. Ask me what I want. I'm getting that chicken tikka masala. Some sag paneer.
As we enter modern British cuisine, gone are the dreary days of boiled beef and bland veggies.
So what I'm gathering is the bad reputation comes from post-war austerity. That's what I'm gathering.
We've entered the golden era of British cuisine now, where culinary wizards are casting delicious spells left and right. Leading the charge in this delicious revolution are celebrity chefs, who during the late 90s and early 2000s become household names. You've got angry Gordon Ramsay, sad and whiny Jamie Oliver, sexy and illustrious Nigella Lawson, and of course there's Heston Blumenthal, the mad scientist of modern cuisine, who's more likely to use a periodic table than an actual one to dine on. Chef after chef, the culinary cred of the UK slowly starts to get better. And the revolution doesn't stop at fancy dining either. The humble British pub has had a makeover too, thanks to the gastropub movement, marrying pints with posh nosh to transform the pub grub scene.
Posh nosh. Posh nosh is tasty.
Posh nosh to transform the pub grub scene. Bangers and mash, which is a simple dish of sausages and mashed potatoes, once a staple of the working class, now graces the menu of high-end gastropubs across the country. British chefs start geeking out with things like sous vide machines, turning traditional stews into gorgeous gastronomic galaxies.
Awesome.
Imagine your nan's Sunday roast, but deconstructed into a taco. Somewhere in London, you're going to find it. And that's the sort of thing that brings us into modern day. Certain things in the latter half of the 20th century start to get popular in British households. Sticky toffee pudding, Eton mess, and a lemon drizzle cake all become familiar to the working class.
Yo, I love that sticky toffee pudding. Haagen-Dazs made a sticky toffee pudding ice cream like many years ago. It was so good. But they discontinued it. It was very sad. I love tacos.
And rise to fame as a popular choice for those with a sweet tooth. And there you have it. British cuisine has shed its stiff upper lip to embrace a kaleidoscope of flavours from around the world. Stiff upper lip to embrace a kaleidoscope of
This photo does not help his argument.
flavours from around the world. From the science lab to the pub, the UK's food scene is not just catching up, it's sometimes leading the charge. We've got a bunch of Michelin-star restaurants here in the UK, proving that when it comes to cuisine, Britain is anything but boring. Sure, the average state of most UK towns and cities is still going to be reduced to curry and kebab houses, Chinese takeaways, and thousands of pretty bad pizza and burger joints, but when considering how far we've come, it's not exactly the worst in the world.
All right.
So as we wrap up our culinary voyage across the British Isles, we've feasted on not just food, but on stories. A veritable buffet of history, culture, and mouth-watering innovation. From Roman grapes to Victorian gruel, British cuisine has weathered invasions and industrial revolutions, each era sprinkling its own bit of spice on the collective culinary pot. This isn't just food, it's history on a plate. So the next time your stomach rumbles, why not let British flavours answer the call? From the humble Cornish pasty to the splendour of a simple Scotch egg, there is a dish ready to challenge every preconception. Dive into the deep end of British cuisine because, who knows, your new favourite meal might just be hiding in one of our dying high streets.
Be sure to go to Big Nibbles and like and subscribe. That was an informative video. The bad reputation is just from the wars. Y'all, I recently had a Cornish pasty for the first time. I was in Flagstaff, Arizona, and there was this restaurant called Cornish Pasty Company. So I got the traditional Cornish pasty, and it was delicious. Let me see if I can find a photo of it. I thought about filming it, but I was there with other people, and I don't, like, that'd be awkward. I wanted to get a Scotch egg as well, but they didn't have them at the time for whatever reason. That kind of looks like what I had. That's the pesto chicken. Yeah, that looks like what I had. It was great. Great atmosphere in there, too. It was like a British pub. What is that? I didn't have that. Is that banana pudding? Damn. Oh, I had the Augie. Steak, potato, onion, and rutabaga served with a side of red wine gravy. It was delicious. Chicken tikka masala. They make a chicken tikka masala Cornish pasty? Well, I'm getting that next time. Pork and apple, lamb and mint, bangers and mash. Yeah, it was great. I could eat it every day. This was really interesting, very informative. Y'all aren't eating that jelly deal. I know you're not. You're not animals. Y'all, thanks for watching this with me. I have another channel where I react to music. It's called JJLA Reacts Music. Check it out. Maybe give me a like and subscribe. If you made it this far in the video, maybe give me a like and subscribe here. I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.